Welcome to the Korum Fishing Made Easy DVD. I'm delighted to say that I've been invited to fish with the one and only Mr. Andy Findlay, better known as the Finn.
Thank
you, brought me to somewhere that most people won't know the name of Brooksby Lake, but it's actually famous in as much as, am I right in thinking this is where you refined and developed the flatline method feeder?
It is, you're right there, Nigel. It was back in the early 90s where, when I used to live local to this lake, I used to come down here and make me prototypes of the flat method feeder, and with various experimentations and what I made the feeder of and different designs, I finally settled on something that I was happy with.
I don't think we're going to be using it today though, do you? It's a bit too cold.
No, with this cold easterly wind, although we're in April now and even it's unseasonably cold, I think we'll be more chance of fishing the bomb.
We're in April, we're supposed to be in Leicestershire. I think there's something wrong with my sat nav. I reckon we're in Siberia, Andy.
It really is that cold, but with this lake, I know it well and I'm very confident that we'll catch some nice fish here. You know, again, bomb fishing, I'd be a bit frightened to cast the feeder out with it being so cold, but
just
on the
single
bomb,
hook baits.
Yeah, just more or less over towards the other bank. The fish know we're on this side, so they sort of retreat over to where the cover is.
I've got just about every so new baits out the catalogue, but you're going to tell me we'll be fishing corn today, aren't you?
Well, again, you know, it's the form that the other venues are fish, and then corn is the bait because it's been so cold. I mean, this time of year it's normally pellets and stuff, but because it's been so cold, we'll be fishing corn here today. I think that's going to give us the best chances of a few fish.
Oh well, if you're confident, I'll go with that. Well, the Finn's brought me to Brooksby Lake, near his home in Leicestershire, and I was really looking forward to it because I imagined it as being a match-style bagging water, although the carp in here go to just over £20, but it's absolutely freezing. We're so unlucky. It's 3-4 degrees, really biting wind, which is why I've got the brolly up. There's no sign of rain, but I'll tell you, it's keeping the wind off me, but it's going to put the fish right down. I was hoping to float fish in the edge because there's some lovely carp and it's a really nice way of catching them, but just to see if I can get one to show you the lovely fish there are in here, according to the Finn, is I've just put out 2 straight rods on the bomb. I've just got a nice little lead clip with a Korum 1 ounce lead, and I'm fishing a hair rig straight corn. And I can just cast around a little bit because I think the fish are going to be holed up. They're not going to be showing. They're not going to be moving around much. I'm just going to see if I can land on one. I'll keep casting about every 10-15 minutes, see if I can pick one off. And if that doesn't work, I've got a plan B. I'll tell you about that later, and I'll show you the rigs in a minute.
Well, although it's really cold today, it's only the second cast of the session. I've cast it a bit tighter to the trees where I know a lot of the carp live in this lake, and sure enough, got a fair bend in the tip waiting for a bite, and it suddenly sprung back as a drop back bite, and I'm into a fish that feels quite decent. Be about, well, anywhere between 6 to 10 pound, I would imagine. Oh, it's just come off. I can't believe it. Oh dear.
Well, that's handy. I've got to be honest, I chucked this one out more in hope than expectation. It's probably been out there close to 15 minutes and I was just about to recast. In fact, I was tying a new rig with some 017 that I borrowed off the Finn just to see if that could get me the difference and get me a bite. Just as I'd about finished it, off we went. It's always nice to catch your first fish from a new venue, and on a day like this, even though it's a scamp, they're all welcome, I can promise you. The Finn came here a little while ago and it's a bit warmer, and he sent me a picture of a beautiful common that he caught. So although this one doesn't feel big, I hope it's nice condition fish. It should still have its winter colours, I'd imagine. There's me talking about, oh, that's a tench. Oh dear, I love my tench fishing. I wasn't expecting a tench, he didn't tell me they were in here. I'm talking about winter colours. This one is very, very pale, but we all know how much tench love corn, and this one's no exception. I'll just get the hook out and I'll show him to you. There you go, look, he's had a close encounter with possibly a cormorant or something's had a bite of him. I doubt if there's any pike in here, but he's got some battle scars, but live to tell the tale. I love my tench fishing. You know, June the 16th is the traditional time to fish for tench, but it just goes to show, freezing easterly wind, 3 degrees, and they're still happy to feed. So the moral of that story is start your tench fishing early. I'll tell you what, mate, I'm glad you live in there, not me, because that water is absolutely freezing. Oh, you don't want to know how cold that water is. Oh, this is where you always need a cloth, not to wipe your hands, to warm your hands. Whew. My hands are cold, but luckily, thanks to my quick change lead clip, I can easily put a new hook link on. This is the one that caught the tench. Braided Korum braid, size 12 hook, fairly short, about an 8-inch hook link, which I'd tied up with the carp in mind. But I'm going to go over on the Finn's recommendation. I'm just going to, there we go, that's how easy it is. Even my cold hands, I can feel this. There we go, I just slide that one off. And the one that I had just tied while I was waiting for the take. So I just take my loop at the end I've tied on the end of my hook link, and then again it's dead easy, just a quick change bead, pull the sleeve down and then just push that back into the lead clip, make sure it clicks in. There we go, tail rubber's already on, and look at that, really clever idea that, typical Korum fishing made easy.
It's the third cast. I've just cast out after I'd lost that first fish. It's been in a long while, well 20 minutes or so, and it's the same sort of bite. It's just dropped back, and I'm into a similar size fish. I didn't think it was that big for a start, but you can see it wants to go now. Just slacking the drag. Always like to play fish off the drag rather than bat wind. I think it's smoother and lose less fish. You can hear that going. You see, you just don't have to touch the reel. The fish just takes the line off the reel. I'm keeping the rod low because I find that the fish will come towards you easier. It's only when the fish is in netting range and it's nearly beaten that I'll raise the rod and get the fish up near the surface, and then it, you know, I'll net it then once it begins to tire. It's a nice smooth drag on this Korum CS reel. Although it's rear drag, it's nice and smooth. Well, I'm just using a fixed rig that's clipped onto the lead, onto the snap link swivel that the lead's clipped on as well too. I find it better like that because the fish can bolt against the lead and it hooks itself properly. I'm using a tail of about 2 foot long, still not beat yet, and I'm hair rigging 2 pieces of sweet corn, which I find is the best bait when the water's still cold, because it's quite a big bait, but it shows up against the coloured water. And any fish that aren't really interested in feeding, if they're swimming by and see the bait just on its bottom presented so it lays flat on the bottom, then there's a good chance that a fish will pick it up. It's deep water close in here on this lake, and the fish is taking advantage of that. It's keeping deep, still taking line now, so you get a good scrap from the fish because it's deep close in. It won't be long now before it's ready for the net, so I'm starting to bring the rod up higher now because the fish is tiring. Won't be long before it's ready for the landing net, although it's still taking line. As I say, it's deep water close in here and they do take advantage of that. I'd guess the fish is around about 8 pounds going on the action of the rod and the weight I can feel through the line. When I first hooked this fish, I didn't think it was that big, but it were obviously just swimming towards me. It was only until it got to about the middle of the lake that it started to sort of slow down and start to feel heavy. You can see the action in this rod here It's a CS 12-foot series. It's a lovely through action. I can't feel it tightening up at all. It's just a nice progressive curve, and it's just taking all the lunges that the fish is making. He's nearly ready for the net now, so I'm going to take the landing net. I've just seen the flash of the fish there. I think it's a common carp. There's commons and mirrors in this lake, and there it is. No, I'm wrong, it's a mirror. And I'd say it's about £8, £8 to £9 looking at it. Just draw him over the landing net and safely in. Well, that's a nice fish for first fish for the day. Still a bit lively. Nice £8 to £9 mirror carp. Well, I'm really happy with that. It's my first fish of the day. I'm going to put it in the keep net now and show you the rig I've caught it on. So here's the rig I've just caught that fish on. You'll notice what I'm using, because I'm casting 40 or 50 yards here today to the far bank near some trees where I believe most of the carp to be on this Brooksby College Carp Lake. I'm using, for that reason, 1.5 ounce lead. It's a streamlined design, so it flies, you can get good distance with it, although there's a heavy crosswind on here today. That's actually clipped onto a safety link, a Korum safety link. So just in case I had a fish on and it managed to get me in them trees and it snagged me up and the line broke above the lead, then it's possible for the fish to pull the lead off the link and swim away freely. You know, it's not tethered to the lead. Going down from the clip, I've got 18 inches of 017 power line. Tied to that is the new CS series carp hook in a size 16, and what I'm doing, I'm hair rigging 2 pieces of sweet corn onto a quick stop. So I actually tied this rig this morning just as I got here, and I adjusted the length of the hair rig to the quick stop for 2 pieces of corn, which the way I mount them are on lengthways, if you like, so that once they're on the bottom, they lay flat on the bottom. So it's very easy for a fish to see that as it's swimming by. The water's quite coloured, and again, that is the reason why I'm using corn, because it's a bright bait. I believe fish feed by sight when the water's murky and it's cold. They don't really want anything that's too overpowering. So it's just a simple rig really. 1.5 ounce bomb to a safety clip, 18-inch hook length, down to a size 16 CS series hook, which is hair rigged using a quick stop. So I'm about to make the cast here. I'm casting about 50 yards to them far bank trees, and ideally I want to get it as close to them trees as possible because that's where I believe most of the fish to be. So the first action of the cast, I'm going to swing my lead out, and ideally I want it between 2 and 3 foot hanging down from the rod. And then when I've got that right, I'm just going to open the bail arm and trap it with my longest finger on my right hand. And when I come back, I'll explain the cast just before I cast it. When I come back, I'm not going to hold it in one position behind me. It's one motion, if you like. I'm going back and then forward in one movement. And then I'm going to let go of the line when the rod's at about 12 o'clock, let the lead fly out. I'm clipped up here, so the cast isn't going to go too far into the trees or on the far bank, hopefully. And at that split second, when it hits the clip, I'm going to put the rod forward and just let the lead go in softly in the water. It's not going to go in like you're throwing a stone in. So here goes. Hit the clip and put the rod down. Don't know if you've seen that, but it landed about 2 feet from the far bank, right underneath them branches. I've buried the rod underneath the water. There's a good wind on here today and it sunk the line immediately. So all I need to do now is bring the rod back and put it on the rod rest, clip my bail arm over, put it on my butt rest here. I've got a nice bend in the tip really. I've not even touched the reel and I'm ready for a bite straight away now.
I'd be exaggerating if I said it's warming up, but the sun's trying to come out and that little bit of temperature could just help the fish feed. And also I'm going to offer them this, a curry flavoured Korum Sonu baits dumbbell. I say 1, 2. I always like 2 of this type of bait because I think it's harder for the fish to eject. And I've just tied up a tiny little walnut sized PVA bag of krill pellets, micro pellets. And before I cast it out, here's my last little trick. I'm just going to dunk it. Oh, that looks lovely in there. This is the krill booster, peppered krill. And look at that. Might not work today, but I tell you what, that has got to be an awesome bait. I wish you could smell that.
Well, there's a proper bite. About time too. It's just taking a bit of line off the reel. Feels a decent fish. It's gone straight to the right. It's just turned now actually. But for now it's swimming towards me. Look, I'm keeping the rod low. That way the fish sometimes follows you in. As you wind it in, it won't want to turn. Again, it's only when I get the fish near my position that I want to net it that I begin to raise the rod. It's all about just keeping the right angle in the rod. You can see it's come off again. I can't believe it. Well, what about that? I've had 3 fish on today so far. I've only got 1 out. Let me show you how easy it is to mix a method ground bait. This one's salted nut crush. A lot of the ingredients have come from the specimen side of carp fishing. There's different types of nuts, salt in it, a bit of fish meal. There's everything in there that carp love. It comes in a resealable bag. And the way I mix it is I like to batch the ingredients. So first of all, what I do, I have a batching container, like the bait box here. It holds 1 pint, that does. And that way, if you have a pint batching container, then you'll end up with roughly about 2 pints of ground bait to fish with, which is a good starting amount. If you're not catching that many fish, then you don't want to waste your bait. If you're catching some more, then you need to think about half an hour before you run out to do some more. Because the way I mix it, it needs about half an hour to absorb the water before you go on to preparing it for the last stage. The first stage then is to pour out the ground bait in the batching container and try and get it near enough level to the top of the batching container without spilling too much, like so. So that's 1 part of ground bait. Pour that into a suitable mixing bowl, and I've worked out roughly that 1 pint of dry ground bait will absorb half a pint of water. And what I like to do is put all this water at once into the ground bait. Just pour it all onto the bait like so, and pick the bowl up and just swish it around. You might have to get your fingers in there and get it so it's all lovely and gooey if you like, so it's ever so sloppy. Now looking at that there, you might think that I've overdone that with water, but I can assure you in half an hour's time that would have almost set like a cake. That's it now. The reason I mix it like this is because if you put all the water in for a start, then you don't have to add water again later on in the day. you'll find that ground bait dries out during the day. You need to put more water with it. But my way of thinking is if you put all the water in for a start, then you don't have to do that ever again. You know, the water's already in there. The only drawback with doing it this way is that it needs half an hour before you use it, because in that time, the pellet powders, the nuts and the salt, everything in there will absorb the water in, and then it will start to dry up, and it will even set in the bottom of the bowl, which I'll show you in about half an hour's time. And then you just need to get into the ground bait with your fingers and rub it all together, get all the lumps out of it. Don't even need riddling, just get it between your hands and rub all the lumps out of it. And what you'll end up with, the end product, is a lovely smooth ground bait like that, no lumps in it. Remember, I've not riddled this, it's just lovely damp smooth ground bait, and when you press it with your hand it just forms a lovely ball. And another good sign of a ground bait is that you can just crumble it together and then it all comes as it was, so there's no lumps in there. Some ground baits you press it hard like that and you won't be able to do that, so that's a sign of a really good ground bait, just coming back to normal once you've broke the ball up.
These are a nifty new addition to the Korum CS series range. Hooked to nylon, perfect for feeder fishing or float fishing, and the great thing about them is they're specifically designed for the type of fishing you're doing, i.e. the bait you're using. It can be confusing in a tackle shop nowadays. There's so many different hook patterns available. Now that's great, but it's knowing which ones to use for which occasion. Now this couldn't be easier because it does what it says on the packet. These ones are specifically designed for pellets or maggots. They're barbless hooks to nylon and perfect hooked strength, size, pattern, everything for if you're fishing pellets or maggot. Likewise, here we've got a much wider gape for meat or paste. Again, perfectly tied, 16 to 6 pound line. They're really good. Just, you know, I love tying rigs, it's therapeutic, but you know, sometimes in the smaller sizes, 20s, it can be fiddly. These are spades, they're lovely and light, and it just makes life so much easier. 15 inches, you can cut them down if you want them a bit shorter. And then there's corn or bread, and again, a nice wide gape in the 16 there. Really good hook, that one, I've used that a lot. And this one, worm and caster, which again, it's got a longer shank so you can thread the worm on. You can get 2 or 3 casters on there. These are a 20 to a 4 pound. Again, all 15 inches in length. They are absolutely perfect, just so much easier.
One of my favourite baits when I'm fishing the method is the S pellets. They come in various flavours and colours and sizes. I prefer the 8mm size, sometimes the 6mm, depending on the size of fish I'm trying to catch. They come in these resealable bags, and as you can see, this sort of pellet is already softened. If you squeeze them in your fingers, there's lots of oil and attractors come out of them, so I believe, you know, that's one of the reasons I catch a lot of fish on these. And they're very easy to mount on a hair rig by using a quick stop. I've got that. What I'm using is a Korum Dura method feeder here, and I've attached a hook length, a ready tied hook length with a quick stop already tied on as the hair, so you don't even have to do that yourself. You just buy them in the bag, in the packet, like I've got here. Just take them out of the packet and clip them on the bead on the end of my Dura method feeder, and you're ready to start fishing really. Now the way I like to present these, very easy. All you do is get your quick stop needle, place it in the end of the quick stop, and then take an S pellet and just push everything through, the quick stop, the needle, everything, till it comes out the other end like so. Pull the quick stop off the needle and then just pull it back onto the pellet. So there it is, nicely presented on there, and that's not going to come off. So there's a hook bait on. What I'm going to do now is put bait on this Dura method feeder. Now there's a mould that comes with this feeder that fits perfectly in the feeder. Like so, you see the feeder goes perfectly in there, it's made to fit in there. And I'll demonstrate using ground bait in this mould. It's nice and soft, and if you squeeze it, it forms a ball. It's not too damp, but just nice, fairly sticky ground bait. So just for demonstration purposes, I'll put this ground bait on this feeder by using the mould. So the first step, if you hold the mould and the feeder like this, what I like to do first is just put enough ground bait or pellets, if you're using pellets, in the mould for a start, just to cover up the green insert that's in the mould. And then what I like to do then is just put my thumb on it just to slightly compress the ground bait or the pellets in the mould. And then this is the time to just lower your hook bait, get it right in the middle of the mould like so, and then put some more ground bait in. Once I've done that, put your thumb on it again and then put some more in. So you've done it 3 times and compressed it each time. The reason I compress it like that is because I'm trying to get as much bait in the mould as possible, and in that way you get the fish confident on the feeder. There's quite a lot of bait there, it's eating it, it's enjoying it as it's feeding on it, and it gets it confident, it loses caution, your hook bait appears while it's feeding through it, and it takes it like that. So that's the bait in the mould. All I need to do now, because I'm holding it this way round, is just upend the Dura method feeder into the mould, and with my 2 thumbs just gently press it in. Don't have to squeeze too hard, just so the feeder's flush with the top of the mould really. And then these moulds, very neat they are. They've got a button on well, the flat side of the mould is a button in itself. I just turn it upside down and press the button like that, and it just drops out. Perfectly made, that is. You can see, because I've turned it upside down and it's dropped out the mould, I've not damaged the seal around the feeder. You know, that's going to stay on, that is, until it hits the bottom. Probably a big splash as it goes in, but that'll stay on until it's on the bottom, and then it will slowly start to break up.
I've tied a lot of rigs today because I like to tie them on the bank as I go along, knowing what baits I need and the conditions. But this Korum rig track's brilliant. I really like it because it's adjustable. You can have all different lengths and you can just adjust. You just take that peg out and put it in the rail there. It's really good. So I've just got a few. These are ones just that I've tied up for today. And I'm just going over the far side. I just want a bit stiffer, so I'm going on the Korum olive mono. I'm going to put a grain of corn on that, and I showed you earlier, but this is so good. Quick change bead incorporated in a lead clip. So just pull the sleeve back, figure of 8 loop on, pull it down, the sleeve over, just push it in and it will just clip in. You can't hear it, but I'll just feel the clip. There it is. And that's totally safe. If I get snagged, the lead will just discharge here and pull off. And when I pack up, because I'm lazy and I leave my rod set up, I'll just take my hook link off, my lead off, and leave all that on with the rod set up. Next time I go fishing, just clip on a lead and a hook link, and off I go. I tied a few rigs before I came. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I've got my Korum rig track here. I've got some braid and some mono of different lengths. But I've also brought with me, these are new, Korum Expert. They're ready tied hair rigs in mono and braid, 8" on the braid, 20" on the mono, which of course you can shorten if you want. But they're so clever. You get everything you need in the pack just to get fishing. Just add bait. These are size 12 to 10 pound braid. You get 3 in here. You also get a baiting needle, and this is the best bit, 3 different types of boilie stops. You get regular stops and then 2 different depths of pellet peg. And it's exactly the same in the mono one, except you get 4 in there. Really good idea, just like everything else from Korum, making your fishing easy.
Well, I can't believe that. I've just changed to a semi-buoyant Bandom, taking some line now, and it's the tip shot round. It's kited off to the right, feels a decent fish. Just taking some side strain on it to try and turn it from getting underneath them trees. I believe it's somewhere now at the minute. Taking line again, it's trying to get under them trees. That's it, just turned him. Swimming towards me now. See, there's a nice bend in the rod there, it's cushioning the fish. Try and get the fish right angles to the rod, then that way the rod's doing the job, it's absorbing all the lunges of the fish. Now it's going down to my right, so I'm going to have to swing the rod over so I've got that right angles again. Just try and maintain that action in the rod. Feels a decent fish. It's just in this deep water in front of me at the moment. Once the fish is in front of you and it's deep down, you can raise the rod and try and get it up to the surface. That way it's ready for netting. Pick the landing net up. It's not as big as my first fish, but it's still a nice fish on a day like today. There's a few swirls on this fish. He's about ready now, I've just seen it. There he is, there's the bait just outside his mouth, making my arm ache a bit. There he is. Still not quite done yet. Picked up some weed on the way in. In you go, yes. Nice looking fish, bit bigger than I first thought. Safely onto the unhooking mat. Let's have a look at him. Look at that, he's got a few leeches on his pectoral fin. I'm just going to pull them off for him. Terrible leeches they are, so I've done the fish a favour in catching it. Let's get the hook out. There was just a few leeches in his mouth. This time of year, when the water's cold, the leeches like to get on the fish. They've got time to sort of settle on the fish. But I've cleaned them off for him now, and there you are. A lovely clean common carp, about £6. Lovely fish on a day like today. Put him safely in the keep net, and we'll try for another.
These are the new Korum bobbins. I like the nice short chain because they don't tangle, they won't wrap round the butt ring or anything and get you, likely to be snapped up when you get a take. Sturdy too. Nice line clip, adjustable. Now the wind's really picked up, so I've got a tight line at the moment. I'm fishing with a tight line because otherwise I'm just getting a big bow in the line from the drag from the wind. Nice thing about tight like this is that if I get a take, it's only going to go one way on this rod because I'm in the middle on a zig, and I'm just going to get a straight run, so that's good indication. And this one tight, I'm over on the far side now in quite shallow water, and the fish is only going to come back towards me. So of course with that one being tight, if I get a take, it's going to be a drop back, which will be I'll easily see that. I am going to have a go down the edge in a minute, and if I fish down the edge, then I'll fish a really slack line, and I'll literally have it just like that, because where on the far side it's only ever going to be a drop back, if I put one down here, it's only going to go away from me, and it's just going to come up and it's going to be a screamer. So totally versatile, dead simple to use. As I say, fully adjustable. If you're really tight, you need to just adjust them. You've just got this little band here that just tightens up so that the heads are tighter together. But they'll always clip off when you get a take as soon as you pick the rod up. And if you want to be flash and fish at night, you can put an isotope in them here. There's a little slot there to put an isotope.
I'm just about to start experimenting with my baits. I've been fishing Korum for quite a while here now, and I've had a few bites, but it's been a bit slow, to be honest with you. When the water's quite cloudy coloured like this is, then these very bright baits can work very well. You can see here I've got some semi-buoyant bandams, and these are really good bait. You don't actually use a quick stop with this type of bait because the name suggests that the way of attaching them is to band them on. You can see here I've got a band on my hair rig, and if you just pull this bait off here, you'll see how easy it is to put back on. The bait is dumbbell shaped, so it slightly caves in down the middle of the bait, and that makes the band stick onto the bait, and it never ever come off. Very easy to put on. You just offer the band to the bait and stretch it over the bandam, and it's very neat the way the band stays on the bandam. Also, they're called semi-buoyant bandams for the reason that they just counterbalance the hook slightly. When it's laying on the bottom, the hook bait will just sit up like that, not up off the bottom. It sits on the bottom, but it's just slightly off the bottom, so it's very visible to the fish. The hook lengths come already tied in a packet like this. There's 8 in a packet, and you can see by the insert in the packet there that the bait band is already tied to the hair rig, so you don't have to do that yourself. Also in the packet you get a baiting needle, which is very good for hair rigging soft baits, and you can also open the band out as well to fit it over the bandams if you find it quite difficult doing that.
I'm too stubborn for my own good at times. I think Andy's had 3 carp from the far side, and I've been trying to catch them in the middle on zigs and all sorts. I even wanted to, I'm still going to have a go down here, but I've just gone over on the far side, and I'm probably only 3 or 4 feet from the bank on the far side. It's only been in 2 minutes, massive drop back, and I'm in, and this one feels like a carp. It just goes to show that on a cold day like this, I always say the 3 most important things in fishing are location, location and location. But it just goes how spot on you've got to be in this weather. The fish obviously aren't moving, and I was a bit worried that putting a lead on their head they'd spook, but they obviously didn't. They came in on a dinner bell, which in these temperatures is surprising. You think you need to put it where they live, but on a day like this, it's not just where they live, not just in their kitchen, you've got to put it on the plate. Oh, I love that drag going. I've been too stubborn for my own good today. I should have gone over the far side earlier, but I wanted to catch one in the middle. I had the tench, but the carp obviously holed up on that far side. The funny thing is if I was on the far side, I'd be casting here. If you look in front of me here, I've caught it like 3 feet from the bank on the far side. Doesn't want to give up. Doesn't feel very big, but as it's my first carp of the day, I'm not going to horse it. And that's the other thing, you wait long enough. I don't want to talk this fish off, but this is where most fish are lost, under the rod tip. You wait long enough for a bite, never rush this part. Sometimes when it's cold, the fish don't fight as hard. But this lad has got other ideas. I think he's training for the next Olympics. I wish I had this much energy in this weather. Pretty mirror. It's always nice when you get your first glimpse of them. He still don't want to give up though. Come on. Phew, it's been hard work today. But that lad is my get out of jail card. There's a little tip. When you net the fish, put your bait runner on or take the bail arm off. It does wind me up when I see people pull fish out the landing net. When they're in the water, you can put the pressure on them because obviously their body weight's supported by the water. But I see people with a really tight line and that's how you can damage their mouths. So just give them plenty of slack. Beautiful colours. Really pretty fish. Very, very pretty. Let's see what's happening here. Beautiful row of scales along the back. That's really nice looking carp. I'd say if they go to 20 in here, I'd like to catch a big one. Plump though. Really nice condition, which you expect at this time of year, but it's a well-run fishery this, and the fish are in great condition. They're obviously a good strain of fish in the first place. Come on you fought hard enough in the water. Don't play up on me now. I'm just going to slip you back. I'll just show you to the camera and you're going home. Look at that. Really nice markings. Lovely colour on the tail. Whoop, keep still, mister. I normally fish for carp that are a bit bigger than this, but I'll tell you what, on a day like today, I'm more than happy with that lad.
He's very close in now. He's in this deep water in front of me. I've raised the rod so I can get him up near the surface ready for netting. There's a bit of a swirl there as it takes some more line. Got to be quite careful when they're close to the rod because with there being less line from the rod to the fish, then there's less stretch and there's more pressure on the hook for it to pull out. Mirror carp, around about £5. There, got ya.
Well done, mate.
Thanks, Nige. It's fourth fish of the day for me. Probably the smallest actually, but on a day like today, not bad at all.
It's interesting, isn't it? The one I caught was really deep and that one's really long and lean.
Yeah, it's probably not ate a lot through the winter months. Hopefully once the water warms up a bit, it'll start feeding properly.
Yeah. So it's your fault that we've struggled today. You're on a diet.
No doubt, yeah. Let's put him in the keep net.
Welcome to the Korum Fishing Made Easy DVD. I'm on the River Severn today with my old mate Shaun Hodges. What do you reckon, Shaun?
Well, Aid, has never seen the river before. Looks lovely. Weather's not brilliant. Water's up a bit, but I still think we have a chance of catching a fish.
Yeah, me too. I think there's a few barbel possible today.
You can see where it's risen before, so it must come up a fair bit.
That's the winter level. This year the river's been under that sort of level for probably 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's dropped off now. Let's see if we can catch a few barbel.
Let's have a go, mate.
Shaun, I can't believe you had special K for breakfast. You look like an egg and bacon man to me.
I can assure you.
Big rashers of fat bacon, loads of eggs. I just can't believe that.
I can assure you, I've had Special K
Special
with
K.
one rasher of bacon on top, but at least you can get into the clothing.
I mean, it must take ages to get a body like yours, mate. Here we are this morning on a cold River Severn, a bit damp. One of my favourite rivers of all time. Caught lots and thousands of barbel here over the years. I'm going to take you to a peg that I've fished plenty of times before. Once we get there, I'll show you the reason why we picked the peg. But it's important, I think, when you're fishing to look at the river and try and gauge what you want from the river, what you want for the day's fishing. As I said, it rained last night, quite heavy. The river's come up a little bit this morning, so hopefully this peg that I picked will catch us a few barbel. So here we are in the peg. Now we've got to look at the reasons why I picked the peg first. I've obviously picked the peg because hopefully there's going to be some fish here, but also on a day like today, a really damp day, the banks on rivers like this, as you can see, really steep, can be very, very slippery. So I've got to think about a bit of safety. So I've looked at a piece of bank where I know I can get my chair in, I know I can land my fish, and I'm going to be quite safe. Secondly, as I said, I want to catch some fish here. So let's look at the river now. Quite a lot of flow on the river as it runs through, just that little bit extra pace because of the rain last night. Just to the inside of that main flow, a couple of yards in from that, is a much steadier flow. And as I look down the peg, just slightly downstream, sort of an angle over towards the bush over there, there's going to be a nice area where hopefully I'm going to find some gravel, which is where the barbel live, and hopefully I'm going to find some barbel.
I've come down on the River Severn today with a good friend of mine, Cadell from Korum. It's the first time I've actually seen the River Severn, and I'm going to try and adopt a roving approach to try and catch a barbel. Aid's going for a more static approach, 2 feeders, maggots, pellets, that sort of thing in the middle of the river. I'm going to move about, fish in close by any feature, any snag, and just see if I can winkle a fish out of any swim. 1 fish out of each swim would be lovely. I'm going to use PVA bags, lightish leads just so I can hold bottom. In the PVA bag I'm going to have pellets, small pellets, high attract with liquid on, and then I've got a small boilie hook bait, and I always put a paste wrap on as well. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give probably 2-3 casts in each swim, which may be about an hour, and if I haven't had a bite by then, move, give it an hour somewhere else, and if that's still not work, come back to the swim I fished before, and then have some bait in already and see if the fish have moved on to them. There's 3 or 4 swims on this stretch that I've seen already. They look perfect for fishing in close. The water's quite coloured, so I don't think the fish will be afraid to come in close. So I'm on my second cast. I haven't had a bite yet, but give it another 10 minutes or so and we'll see how we get on.
Let's look at getting the chair in place. Slippery banks, sloopy banks, but this chair overcomes everything for me simply by using all the adjustments available to me. I can get the chair in a level position on the bank, level and a comfortable fishing position. First of all, I've got to get these back legs in this swim up as high as I can. You see the good mud feet on there. Day like today, the mud feet are invaluable. Just get that leg down there. Let's see if we can get the front legs in a correct position now. That one's in, that one's in. Let's bring the back up into a comfortable position. It's critical as well to get the front of the chair slightly higher than the back. If not, all day I'm going to be slipping off my chair. So a little bit more adjustment on these front legs. I definitely do not want to be slipping off the chair. Just get this other side down and level. Tighten them up. I'm just going to sit in it now just to make sure I am fairly comfortable. Chair's nice and firm. I'm going to be wiggling about a bit during the day as I cast, and yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, let's put the side tray on. Invaluable side tray. Push it onto the leg, tighten up slightly. Ideal for my hook tying stuff, and of course my all important cup of tea. On the other side, I'm going to put the cool bag. Again, it just pushes on the leg, tightens up. That allows me to have my maggots and hemp in there, which I'm going to be fishing maggot today, so that'll be ideal. Along with my maggots today, I'm going to be fishing a bit of hemp. Tinned hemp is great. It's cooked in the tin, all the flavour, all the oils are still in that hemp. So, little trick I'm going to show you now to boost that up. Easy ring pull can, no can opener required. Tip that in. To boost the hemp up a little bit, I'm going to use this Super Seaweed flavour shaker. Plenty of that on. Give it a stir in. The dampness from the hemp will bring out all the flavours. And with it being seaweed, there's lots of salt, lots of enzymes. They're going to give me the edge I need. Really perfect for the conditions for today.
Right, I'm just going to go through the rig end and bait that I'm going to be using today. I've got a K-grip inline lead, 2.5 ounce, which is going to be absolutely plenty to hold on the bottom. I've got 12 inches of 10-pound expert power braid hook length, along with a size 12 expert hook. I've got a lasso's type hair rig setup, which I'm going to use one of these stinky Sono baits, curry flavoured boilies. Just fed that down like that, no problem at all. I like to use these dumbbell shaped ones rather than round ones. I just think it gives you a slight better edge. Before I cast out, summer or winter, I will always put a bit of paste round. Just gives that higher leak off. Just think it gives you a bite that bit quicker. Now that paste will stay on there for about 20 minutes, no problem at all. And then before I cast out, I will always put a PVA bag on. Depends on the time of year, depends how big a bag I use. We've got these ellipse pellets, which we all know that Barb will love. About a dozen in there, that's all we need at the moment. A few of the crumbed up boilies. As I said, these stink, so any more traction you can give around your hook bait can only help you, and by crumbing them up, you're just making that happen a bit quicker. And just for good measure, again, same scenario for that extra traction, a bit of the crumbed up paste. Pull that down. Tie a knot. Cut that off. Now that PVA bag is absolutely packed full of high attract goodies. And all you have to do, get your hook bait, your hook through the PVA bag, twist a couple of times, once through again, can't come off on the cast, and there we have the rig I use and bait presentation I use for most of my barbel fishing.
Third cast on the maggot, and we're into a fish. Definitely a barbel, no ifs, no buts. And you can see now the rod, lovely power curve in this rod. That's the Neoteric multi-quiver power. Perfect for this job. Forgiven if this fish lunge now, the rod is going to take the power. KRXI reel. And I'm using a little bit of clutch, as you can see, but I'm also back winding as well. That's just the way I've always played barbel. The clutch on these reels is fantastic, but I can just feel it through the rod, through my finger. I can feel when the fish needs some line, and if I don't think the clutch has let it go quick enough, I'll just let that back wind a little bit. You can see the fish now just coming up. Nice big landing net. I see too many, and again you can feel the clutch, just how smooth that clutch is, just letting that fish go. A lot of people tend to play barbel with a rod very high. I don't. I prefer to play barbel with a rod fairly low. The key to the whole thing is to keep the fish moving. So if the fish isn't pulling you, you're pulling the fish. If you let a barbel settle, he's going to find a snag, and he's going to find it quickly. No rushing. Net sideways through the water, and I'm going to try and hopefully get this fish up to the net this time. Nice big landing net. No good messing about with match pans or anything like that for this type of fishing. This is the Korum folding spoon, the 30-inch version. Perfect net for this job, absolutely perfect. And just see the feeder coming out of the water, long hook length as you can see. And a decent barbel. Hopefully he's going to come straight into the net this time, just like that. Now the key thing now, with handling your barbel, is not to take that fish out of the water at this minute. That's why I like the big net, another reason I like the big net. That fish now is resting, he's just fought a good battle for us. Now we just got to give him a minute or two to breathe before we can get him out of the water. And if we're going to weigh him, measure him, whatever we need to do, well, we've got to make sure that we look after that fish. That's key to the whole thing. So the fish has rested a few minutes in the landing net, got a good drink. Now it's really critical when you pull a fish up the bank in these landing nets, or when you get a fish out of the water in a landing net, it's really critical, because if you lift the pool, you're going to break the pool. So what I'm going to do is gradually ease this up until I can get hold of that spreader block and get the weight of the fish and the net on the spreader block. If not, you're definitely going to break it. Up now onto the unhooking mat with the fish. And there we go. You can see a good hook hold. 3 maggots there. I always use forceps to unhook my barbel. Very, very easy. Just hold the line tight, down on term, and twist the hook out. For safety's sake, just get the rod out of the way so the rod ain't going to get stood on by anybody. Now you notice the unhooking mat is soaking wet, everything is wet. Day like today where it's damp, it's not such a problem, but even so, plenty of water on there. On a summer's day, you want lashings of water on it. The fish's slime and that is going to be removed if everything's dry. So now it's a matter of easing the fish from the landing net into the sling, which I've already zeroed with the scales. Landing net out of the way. Make sure the fins, the fish and everything are tucked in. If you want more details of how to handle barbel, and it is essential if you're barbel fishing to handle them properly, look on YouTube for the Barbel Society Handling Code. It's a great idea, great film, tells you exactly how to handle barbel and make sure you don't damage them. Get the scales into the sling and we'll get a weight of this fish. I reckon he's going to go £5 or so. Wow, exactly £7. So what a great fish for the first fish of the day. Superb condition. Let's have a look at the fish now. And you can see the sling, I'll show you, keep the sling nice and wet. And what we've got there is £7 of pure muscle and an amazing condition. Absolutely fin perfect. And we've got to remember, this is a heavily fished piece of water we're on here, but you can see that fish is in immaculate condition. Okay, I think he's been out of the water long enough. So what we'll do now is return him to the water. Landing net back in, slide the fish over into the wet landing net. Nice, easy, plenty of padding on this mat, so the fish is not going to take any harm. Again, pick the net up by the spreader block and back to the water. Banks are a bit tricky today, but just that little set of steps here has just helped me ease the fish down. No weight on the handle or the net arms. And just give the fish a minute or two just to get his breath back. That's key now to get the fish upright. So if that fish isn't upright, I'm just going to get him in and upright. There we go, he's kicked now and he's going to come upright, hopefully with a bit of luck. Yeah, there he is. Okay, now I see a lot of people use triangle nets for barbel, and I'm not into triangle nets. They just don't allow me to rest the fish and return the fish like I want. This big pan net is fantastic for the job. I'm just going to lower that down now, and I think hopefully we're going to see this barbel swim away nice and strongly. He's just turned up in the net, but hopefully, here he goes. Just come out of there, my beauty. Yeah, and you see that fish return. He swam away safe, he just hesitated and away he went. I'm happy with that, and that fish has gone back to fight another day.
Right, let's make a cast. Do the clutch up. Always make sure before you cast in that you haven't got it round the tip. Open the bail arm, and I'm just flicking it just into the main flow, which is only 5 or 6 yards. Stop it there, hold on a tight line. That's gone bang. Now I don't want to let any line out because I don't want it to get around the snag. To the right. Well, that's about 5 foot of water, I reckon. Let a tiny bit out, just so the tip's not bent too much. perfect. Now I've got this bait, as I said, just past the first crease. There's a bit of a steady flow before it goes into the next main flow, so to speak. There's a big snag to me right, and I've landed on what I believe is firm gravel on the bottom. Now I'm going to do the clutch up, because of snag fishing you cannot give an inch if you do get a bite. I've got confidence because I've got this Neoteric twin power barbel rod. I've got the 1 3/4 pound tip on, which is plenty for this. I've got the expert new Korum expert line, 11 pound, which is going to stand the test of time, no problem at all here. So if I do hook a fish, I can hold, not give an inch of line, and I know the tackle's not going to let me down. So let's sit back. That's settled lovely. Let's see if we can get a bite. Right, well I've been in this swim now for about just over an hour, maybe hour and a quarter. I've had 3 casts. I haven't had so much as a tap. So what I think is best for me to do now is reel in, give this swim a rest. There's a swim I've got my arm further down below aid, where there's another snag close in, and I'm going to go and put some bait in, some pellets, and a few of these chopped little boilies. Give that a rest, let that settle, go upstream to another swim, just fish blind that into open water for 10 minutes or so, and then rover back between these 2 swims I've been baiting already. I'm about 80 yards downstream from where I originally started, and as you can see, I've come to another group of snags. Now it doesn't look like it's been fished a lot lately because there's not a lot of footprint. Well, there's actually no footprints down there, and what you can see down there in between the 2 snags, you've got the flow just run off the outside of the one, and then you've got a bit of a back eddy down here, which I'm sure barbel are going to be sat under, because that is really calm and still, just off the first crease again. So if I can make my way down, just remember when you're walking along these banks, go careful. Don't always go for the quickest route, go for the safest. As you can see, these banks are fairly slippy, and safety is paramount when you're fishing on these rivers. If I can just creep down in between these 2 snags, try not to make too much bank side disturbance, because we are going to be fishing really close in here. And then what I'm going to do, I've got a few pellets. It's not too far, so I haven't got to go far up. And then a couple of the boilies. Now that doesn't seem a lot, but on a day like today, I don't think we're going to need too much bait. And with all that attraction in the pellets, I reckon those fish are going to come out of that snag and get onto that bait. I reckon an hour. I want to leave that before I come down and just sneak a rod on the edge.
As we spoke about earlier, using maggots today, you can see red maggots. Conditions like today, a little bit murky, river's got a little bit of colour in it. I like the red maggot. When the river's very low and clear, I like the white maggot. But you know, over the years, people talk to me and ask me about the secrets. There is no secrets. There is no secret bait in fishing. I've been looking for 25 years. I've never found it. The simple reason I've never found it, there isn't one. What there is good quality bait. And all my faith goes in Sonia baits. Fantastic bait. I've used it now for a few years and I don't use any other bait. The other approaches, let's look at some approaches we could have used today. We could have used a ground bait. And over the years, Barbel really respond to anything spicy. Curry powder type things. And this one from Sonia Baits, it's a bait that I developed alongside them. So I've got every faith in it as a spicy, meaty mix. It's a bit like a sausage frying in the pan, if you like. It gives that lovely sausagey, sizzly smell, a little bit spicy, fantastic. Fish that in a feeder with a few pellets in with a feeder. Different size of pellets in the feeder, and you can control how many pellets go in the water. You can almost fill the feeder with pellets and just plug the end, or you can have just a few pellets in the middle and more ground bait. Depend upon how much you want to feed, how hungry the fish are, how much bait you want to put in. Alongside that, on the hook, the spicy sausage pellets to go with it. These are already drilled, so it's so easy. Fishing made easy, Korum. Fishing made easy, Sonia Baits. Already drilled for you on a hair rig. Straightforward little pellet peg underneath it, and away you go fishing. You can also fish the slightly bigger pellet there, an 8mm halibut pellet. Could drill them out and use them on a hair rig if you wanted, or again just feed a few, and even bait drop them in if you need to. There's lots of different ways you can feed them. As I said a little while ago, there's no secrets in the bait that we use, but there is things you can do to give you the edge, and that's the important thing. What I'm going to move on to now is showing you how to prepare some maggots that really give you the edge. Let's look at how we can prepare some maggots and just give that extra little bit of edge that we really require some days. That sets us apart from other anglers. Let's try and be a little bit different. And all we're going to do is turn some ordinary shop bought maggots into a really spicy maggot mix. What we need is a couple of pints of maggots tipped onto a riddle. We've got to knock the rubbish off that comes from the tackle shop, the old sawdust and maize, onto a nice open riddle. Quick shake so we don't lose too many maggots. And then into my bucket. Okay, what we got now, pretty clean maggots. Odd feather in there from where they come from. Don't worry too much about that. On top of them now, I'm going to put a good handful of maize flour. Just ordinary everyday maize flour. What that'll do is give these maggots a nice dusty, and just let me stir that up a minute or two. Already you can see them maggots look a heck of a lot better. Plenty of maize flour on them. That's took the grease off of them. That's given them a nice fresher look. Now let's give them that added boost. Spicy sausage, flavour shaker. In there is probably enough to do a gallon of maggots, so I'm going to need probably about a quarter of that tub. Shook on them. Let's do it so you can see it. God, smells like somebody cooking sausages for breakfast. Believe me, these maggots really have got the edge.
Right, well I've moved up the river now 40-50 yards to an area which to my left is very shallow. It drops down to 3 to 4 foot and then continues dropping to my right 6 foot. I've got 2 rods out this time. I've put one straight across in the first drop off, and then my other rod is fishing downstream 30 yards where there's a crease but it is deeper water. Now as I say, I've been here 20-30 minutes and I had a bite. My first bite of the day. Afraid to say, is stuck. Now I'm not going to pull too hard. I believe it must be behind a rock. So I'm going to put the rod back down. Anything like this, you never need to rush, because I believe the fish is still on there. So just loosen the clutch a bit, and let's just hope and pray he'll pull himself out. Why that's happened, I've reeled my other rod in from straight in front and I've put it back to where I had the bite from. I've had a knock straight away, but on this rod I've had a longer hook length. Now I'm a believer that that knock should have been a fish. So I'm going to change over to my shorter hook length with a PVA bag, which is what I hook the fish on the other rod. So I'm just going to reel this rod in, get it back out there, but with a lot shorter hook length, PVA bag and a bit of paste wrapped around the boilie.
Okay, let's have a reel in and show you the actual rig I'm using today and give you some ideas why I'm going to use that rig. Put the rod in the rod rest. Just let myself a little bit more line out there. Okay, let's look at first of all the feeder. That's a Korum combi feeder, just on the running rig kit. Nice and free running. No resistance to the fish at all. We look at the running rig kit in a minute or two. Let's look at the feeder first. In this state, it's a block end feeder, great for the maggots and the hemp like we're using today. But should I want to change quickly to maybe using a pellet approach, which we did talk about with the ground bait and bits and pieces, very easy to change this into an open-ended feeder. It's that easy. Now we've got ourselves an open-ended feeder. Quickly I could change the hook length. Here, rig a pellet. I could be fishing a pellet with probably less than 2 minutes. Again, Korum fishing made easy for you. But let's go back. Let's just put this back and show you how to make this back into a block end feeder for the first time. Very, very easy. The main thing is you've got to look on the caps of the feeder. There's a couple of arrows which have got to match the arrows on the feeder. If you don't, the caps won't actually fit. That then pushes through. It's on a piece of power gum. That pushes in tight. Here we go, top one pushes in, that easy, back to a block end feeder. So let's have a look at the running rig kit. Before this kit came onto the market in its present form, I spent ages trying to develop something. I used all different bits of tackle, swivels here and bits and pieces here. And then talking to the development team at Korum, we came up with this. Everything in one packet for you. Again, Korum fishing made easy. What we've got, a running rig with a quick release on it for the feeder. So very, very quickly I can change the size of feeder should I need to. It's that easy to remove the feeder and that easy to put the feeder back on. You just got to locate this swivel of the feeder into the clip, twist it round, lock it in, feeder back on. That easy. So I can change a feeder in less than a minute. Should I find I need a heavier feeder or a lighter feeder, very easy to do. The clever bit is the bead, which you can see is cut at an angle. The idea of that is when the run rig comes down and lays against the feeder, the weight lays against the bead, it then offsets, slight boom effect, and offsets the hook length. That's to prevent the tangles. So the hook length is now out here. When I cast, if the feeder rolls, because of this offsetting of the rubber, we don't get a tangle. In the kit, in the free running rig kit, it comes with just a plain swivel. I've slightly developed mine, and what I've done is I've changed that, and underneath there I use a quick release swivel, simply and easily, because if I want to change my hook length, instead of having to tie a knot every time, I literally can just pull my hook length off of the clip simply by pushing against it, twisting it up, and the hook length is off. If I need to reattach it, it's just a matter of lining the swivel up against the open part, pulling it on, pulling the bead down, and again I'm fishing. Really couldn't be much easier than that for you. Let's tell you a little bit about the hook length. You can see what there is at the top of the hook length. In my case is a very small swivel, a rubber which comes in the running rig kit, and now I've got about 4 foot of 10-pound expert mono. And the business end is a size 14 expert hook. 3 maggots, No hair rigging of the maggots today, but if I was hair rigging, it wouldn't be a problem. Often hair rig maggots on a little loop of nylon or something like that, but today it's straightforward, 3 maggots, powerful hook, no good fishing match hooks in this situation, nice powerful, nice round bend on it, very strong hook. Now, one of the little edges again you can give yourself, and something that Korum have thought about and will be on the market very soon, and we're lucky today to be able to try some, is these little rubber grubs. Imitation maggots, sort of semi-buoyant, so what they're going to do is just take the weight of that hook a little bit. They're not going to pop them up, not in this situation. What I'd probably use is just one with a couple of proper maggots on the hook as well. And I'll challenge you in a minute or two to tell me which is the real maggot and which is the false maggot.
Right, the bad news is I didn't get that fish in. So what I'm going to do is put that behind me, and I'm going to try something a bit different. Now, everyone knows what a method feeder is. Plenty of barbel anglers use method in the past, but they use the traditional bulky ones. These new feeders from Korum, the Jura method feeder, I think will be absolutely perfect for river fishing. Now you've got a flat base, which is the weight itself, and what I'm going to see if I can get a fish on is by literally taking some smaller pellets this time. I'm going to put them into the base of the feeder. Now, because it's got the sides on, as you can see, the pellets won't actually fall out. So then what that enables me to do is get some of this spicy meat ground bait, which really does hum, and then what I can do is compress over the top. Now that would do a few things. One, it holds the pellets inside the feeder. A bit more. Two, I've got 2 forms of attraction then. I've got this fine ground bait, which, as I say, absolutely stinks. Now when that hits the riverbed, that will then send a scent trail down. Those little crumbs of ground bait will break up, go down the river, but all the pellets, the harder, the bigger items of food inside, will stay in the feeder and around the feeder. So you can imagine the fish coming up from below on the scent of the ground bait, and then finally coming to the pellets, start hitting that, and I've got my hook bait, but I'm still going to do a foot in, so I won't go 3 inches like you would in a lake, about a foot still, and hopefully they can pick the hook bait up as well. Now this does come with a mould, but because I want to get a bit more ground bait on, I'm not going to use the mould this time. So I want to get a really big bit on there, compress it as hard as I can, so that one, that will withstand the cast, and 2, that will get to the riverbed. So let's get this out into the river and see if we can catch a fish. That's held on the feeder perfectly. That's hit bottom now straight away. It's not that deep, as I said earlier, but I'm confident that that ground bait is held on the feeder. And it should start working its magic instantly, hopefully dragging a few fish from upstream. With that fish I lost and that tap I had on that longer hook length, I think this swim is worth giving it a good another hour or 2. As I say, it doesn't sound a lot of activity I've had, but I know there's not a lot going on rest of the river, so I really do think it's worth persisting, and as I said, give it another hour or 2 and I reckon we might get a fish.
Yeah, it's turned into a pretty tough day now. It sort of started in misty, murky conditions, but now that it's quite heavy rain, the banks are quite treacherous, but you know what they say, never work with children, animals, and especially not fish. But let's just show you a couple of things that I do to make it easier when you are fishing, particularly with these long hook lengths. One of the problems with long hook lengths is you often get tangles in the hook length gets a bit damaged, or in the case of fishing over gravel where the barbel live, often the hook point gets damaged. If I just reel in now, I'll give you a little idea of a few things we can do just to check that everything's okay and what to do if it's not. Let's quickly get the rig back in, out of the water. If I just lift that out. Okay, what often happens is you get a bit of damage on your hook length. Now always just have a little feel down your hook length. You can actually feel it under your fingers. That's one thing to check for. A little bit of rubbish coming in the river now, you can see from the extra water what's been brought on by the rain. And the other critical thing is feeling your hook point. And the simplest test of that is if a maggot goes on without bursting, you can pretty much be sure you've got a sharp point. But if you're struggling to get the maggot on and it bursts or whatever, then it's pretty sure you can say that the point has gone on the hook. And the best thing to do is change your hook. Now, I don't go through this long process of changing the hook length by retying a hook length up. What I'll actually do, if I just show you, pull that rubber back like I showed you earlier on, simply unclip the present hook length. Always discard that properly, so I'll drop that in that bin there where I know are safe. And what I use is the rig board. It's the Korum rig store, perfect for long hook lengths. Barbel fishing for me is all about long hook lengths. I know my partner on the bank today, Shaun, is all about short hook lengths and different. For me, it's all about long hook lengths. And it's very difficult to store long hook lengths, but this board is something we developed at Korum. And again, I had a big say in it, in being able to store, let me just drop that on there, long hook lengths. What you can see, I can wind them round as many times as I want, and they're all just taped in with a pin, no problem at all. So let's get a hook length off. And these ones this side I know because I just tied them not many days ago, are my maggot ones. Just undo the pin, drop the pin off, unwind the hook length, and you can see us come off there clean. There's no kinks in it. Drop that through, get rid of the rig board. You can see that even though I've been on that rig board, look, hopefully the camera can pick that up. There's no kinks on that at all. So now it's just a matter getting the swivel. Just ease that swivel back, clip it in, that's in. Pull the hook length sleeve up. Pull the run rig rubber down. Hey presto, Adie's ready to fish again. Couple of maggots on the hook. And remember what I said earlier, try and pick them better, bigger maggots out. They always seem to produce the fish, the better the maggot. Fill the feeder, little bit of hemp. And away we go.
All right. Unbelievably, I've just had another bite. Camera was down with Aid. I've given him a shout and we've got a barbel. Same position with a PVA back and paste on the short hook length. And there we go. My first 7 barbel. Just let that rest in the net a second. Go and get a mat and a sling. Get it weighed, see how big it is, but I'm chuffed to bits.
What'd you get it on, mate?
The old spicy sausage paste.
Yeah, I reckon that's probably worked today with that extra colour in the water, that strong flavour. That's what they need.
Yeah, with a PVA bag as well, lips pellets, they always work.
Ah, great stuff. Just hold on, let's get your hand up the bank.
If you hold the rod, mate, because it's very slippery and we don't
Yeah,
want to...
just hold on.
All right, just bear with us a second, eh? There we go. I'm just going to take my time because it is, because of the rain. Cheers, mate. Sound. Thanks a lot.
Tell you what, mate, what a fish for a day like today, eh?
My first 7 barbel.
Hey, yeah, what about that?
Not a whopper, mate, but with conditions being hard, who cares?
Yeah.
Look at that, hooked well. Yeah, no, there's no way that one was coming off, mate. And it
Lovely
is
job.
a plump fish.
Yeah, it's a plump fish, isn't it? They're lovely fish, these 7 fish. You know, they get fish for quite a lot, but look at that. The fish I had earlier was in great nick, and look at that one. Fantastic condition. Let's get the rod right out of the way, mate.
Yeah, it fought really well.
Yeah, sometimes that's deceiving, Shaun. You know, I've had some big fish over the years, and some of these smaller fish fight just as hard. And you know, but to me, every barbel's a cracking fish, regardless of the size.
I totally agree, mate. Now, I thought it was a better fish when I first did it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because it zonked off downstream.
Yeah.
They've just got so much power in the flow, especially.
Yeah, over the years, Shaun, I've brought loads of people on this river. I do a bit of guiding, and I brought loads of people here, and they've had their first ever barbel. It's probably produced more first barbel for any other river in the country, but most of them are surprised. They often say, God, I thought that was much bigger than that. But hey, don't know about you. Like I said, every barbel counts as far as I'm concerned.
Excellent, mate. I owe you one. Thanks for bringing me here.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
Just remember, when you're putting the back, just take the time, because all barbel give a hard fight. Just hold the way. He's ready to go. By the looks of it, there you go. He's turned over, still full of strength. Excellent.
Mate.
Hello, mate. I don't know about you, but I think I've just about had it.
Yeah, it's been a tough old day, mate, innit? That's a certainty. This weather's really turned for the worse now, but fishing's been tough all day. But I'll tell you what, mate, I know a pub with a nice hot log fire, cold pint of bitter, and a special K burger.